The reflection staring back from the floor-to-ceiling window wasn't hers, not entirely. It was Kang So-yeon, yes, early 40s, sharp in a charcoal grey pantsuit, dark hair pulled back in a severe knot. But the woman superimposed over the glittering Gangnam skyline seemed too polished, too composed. The wariness clinging beneath her eyes, the slight tension in her shoulders, those were hers alone. Remnants of a past life this sleek PJ Tech office couldn't quite erase. 1 year into her marriage with Chairman Park Jin-woo, a year navigating the treacherous currents of his family and his legacy, and So-yeon still felt like an imposter draped in couture. She turned from the window, the Q3 report glowing accusingly on her monitor. Numbers didn't lie, but they could certainly be manipulated. The launch of the Aura smart home interface, spearheaded by her Global Strategy and Innovation Hub, had exceeded projections. Yet, the integration metrics, reliant on data flowing from Park Min-jun's R&D division, showed inexplicable lags. Min-jun, her stepson, a man barely a year younger than her, impeccably dressed, effortlessly entitled, who regarded her with a politeness so thin it was transparent. The intercom buzzed. Chairman Park is on his way up, Director Kang. So-yeon smoothed her already immaculate suit jacket. Jin-woo. He was the reason she was here, the anchor in this gilded cage. A widower in his late 60s, he'd swept into her life when she was barely keeping her head above water, a single mother running a small marketing consultancy born from sheer grit after her first husband's sudden death. He offered stability, partnership, a genuine affection that warmed the corners of her guarded heart. He saw her competence, valued her insights, unlike his son. Chairman Park entered, his smile warm but tired. He carried the weight of PJ Tech, a tech components empire built from scratch heavily these days. So-yeon, he greeted, sinking into the visitor's chair. Good news on the Aura launch, I hear. Exceeding targets, Chairman, she confirmed, keeping her tone professional but allowing a hint of warmth. The marketing campaign hit the mark. Your mark, he corrected gently. You have a keen eye, So-yeon. That's why. He paused, taking a breath. This felt significant. I've decided on the restructuring. The Global Strategy and Innovation Hub needs full autonomy to navigate the future. You'll have final say on cross-divisional projects related to new market entry and long-term tech mapping. Min-jun's R&D will report functionally to your hub on those strategic initiatives. So-yeon's breath caught. This wasn't just autonomy, it was power. A direct line to shaping PJ Tech's destiny, placing her, effectively, on equal footing with Min-jun for the eventual succession. Jin-woo saw it as strengthening the company, leveraging her proven skills. She saw the storm gathering in her stepson's eyes across the city. Jin-woo, are you sure? She asked, the professional mask slipping. Min-jun. Min-jun will understand, the chairman said, perhaps a touch too firmly. This is about the company's future, not just family. He needs to see the bigger picture. You've earned this. Later that evening, the family dinner at the chairman's sprawling, traditional-style house in Pyeongchang-dong was thick with unspoken tension. Haeun, her 14-year-old daughter, picked nervously at her food, sensing the shift in atmosphere. Min-jun arrived late, dressed in casual but expensive clothes, a faint smirk playing on his lips. Father, he acknowledged, bowing slightly. Then, turning to So-yeon, Director Kang, congratulations on your expanded responsibilities. The pause was infinitesimal, the emphasis chilling. Thank you, Min-jun, So-yeon replied, meeting his gaze evenly. I look forward to collaborating more closely. Collaboration, Min-jun echoed, swirling the wine in his glass. An interesting concept, especially when it comes to family legacy. Chairman Park cleared his throat. Enough business talk. Haeun, how was school today? The conversation shifted, but the undercurrent remained. So-yeon felt Min-jun's eyes on her throughout the meal, assessing, calculating. He couldn't dismiss her as just his father's young wife anymore. She was a peer, a rival, an obstacle. The battle lines, invisible until now, had been starkly drawn. As she helped Haeun with her coat later, she caught her reflection in a dark window. The wariness was still there, but beneath it, a flicker of resolve. She wouldn't be easily swept aside. She had earned her place, and she would fight to keep it, not just for herself, but for the fragile stability she'd finally found for her daughter. The sleek Gangnam office towers felt a world away from this house filled with old money and older resentments. The real fight, she knew, had just begun. The initial volleys from Min-jun were subtle, almost deniable. Emails seeking clarification on points already covered in meetings. Key personnel from his R&D division suddenly unavailable for crucial integration workshops for the Aura project's next phase. So-yeon found herself CC'd on fewer strategic planning loops originating from his side. When she addressed it directly in a management meeting, Min-jun feigned surprise. "An oversight, Director Kang. My apologies. Things have been hectic transitioning to the new structure. We're all adjusting." His smile didn't reach his eyes. Other executives shifted uncomfortably. Publicly challenging the chairman's son, even politely, was navigating a minefield. So-yeon focused on her work, meticulously documenting every interaction, every request, every delayed response. Her small team within the hub was loyal, hand-picked for their talent and, she suspected, their lack of prior allegiance to Min-jun. But they were swimming against a powerful tide. Then came the first real sabotage. Project Nightingale, a potential partnership with a German AI firm that So-yeon had personally nurtured for months, suddenly hit a wall. The German CEO cited concerns about internal alignment and technological readiness at PJ Tech, concerns So-yeon couldn't trace back to any legitimate source. It smelled like Min-jun, whispering poison into the right ears. She presented her suspicions to Jin-woo, laying out the timeline, the sudden shift in the German company's attitude. Min-jun wouldn't jeopardize a deal like that, Jin-woo insisted, though a flicker of doubt crossed his face. He's protective of the company. Perhaps there was a genuine misunderstanding, So-yeon. Talk to him directly. The conversation with Min-jun was infuriatingly circular. He expressed deep regret over the Nightingale failure, offered vague theories about competitor interference, and smoothly deflected any implication of his involvement. "These international deals are tricky, Director Kang. Maybe your approach was too aggressive for their culture." The passive aggression was a constant hum. In board meetings, he'd preface his comments with, "While Director Kang brings a fresh marketing perspective, the core technology requires," subtly framing her as an outsider unfamiliar with the company's soul. Rumors began to circulate, whispers about her expensive wardrobe, funded by the chairman, of course, hints that her previous consultancy had closed under a cloud of debt, twisting her past struggles into present incompetence. So-yeon felt the pressure mounting. Sleep became elusive. She saw the worry in Hyun's eyes when she came home late, drawn and tense. "Is Uncle Min-jun angry with you, Ioma?" Hyun asked one evening, her voice small. "It's just work stress, darling." So-yeon lied, forcing a smile, but the question struck a chord. The poison was seeping into her home life. It was Lee Ji-hai, a sharp senior manager in strategic planning, whom So-yeon had noticed being consistently overlooked by Min-jun, who provided the first concrete piece of evidence. Ji-hai approached her cautiously in the executive lounge, glancing around before speaking. "Director Kang," she began, her voice low, "I overheard something about the server allocation for Project Nightingale's simulation phase. Min-jun personally rerouted processing power to one of his pet projects the week before the Germans pulled out. He cited priority resource allocation. There's a digital trail, if you know where to look." So-yeon stared at her. "Why are you telling me this?" Jie shrugged, a cynical twist to her lips. "He sidelined my proposal for the European market expansion last year using similar tactics. Let's just say I believe in meritocracy, Director, and I don't like bullies." She hesitated, then slid a small USB stick across the table. Internal server logs. Be careful. Armed with Ji-hai's data, So-yeon felt a surge of cold anger. This wasn't just office politics, it was deliberate, calculated sabotage. She spent hours cross-referencing the logs, building an undeniable case. But confronting Jin-woo again felt perilous. He adored his son, saw him as the rightful heir despite his flaws. Accusing Min-jun directly, with irrefutable proof, might force a choice. Jin-woo wasn't ready to make, potentially fracturing their own relationship. Meanwhile, Min-jun escalated his campaign. He began spending more time with his father outside of work, organizing weekend trips, invoking memories of his deceased mother. He painted himself as the loyal son, protecting the family legacy from an ambitious outsider. So-yeon saw Jin-woo becoming more distant, his reassurances sounding increasingly hollow. He'd mentioned Min-jun's concerns about her moving too fast, about the need for stability. The upcoming Global Tech Summit in Singapore was PJ Tech's chance to unveil Helios, a revolutionary battery technology developed under So-Yeon's strategic oversight, heavily reliant on Min-jun's R&D for the core components. It was her division's flagship project, the ultimate validation of her role. The pressure was immense. Days before the summit, So-Yeon was working late, reviewing the final presentation, when an urgent notification popped up. A leading tech blog had just published an explosive article, PJ Tech's Helios project, Innovation or Illusion? Leaked documents raise serious questions. The article contained excerpts from internal progress reports, selectively edited and taken out of context, painting a picture of falsified data and critical design flaws. It quoted anonymous sources within PJ Tech expressing grave concerns about the project's viability and leadership. Her blood ran cold. This was Min-jun's checkmate. He hadn't just sabotaged the project, he'd aimed a missile at her reputation and the company's credibility on the eve of its biggest showcase. Her phone rang. It was Jin-woo's secretary. "The chairman requests your presence in his study at the Pyeongchang-dong residence immediately. Mr. Park Min-jun is already there." The final confrontation had arrived. The air in Chairman Park's study was suffocatingly still. Heavy oak bookshelves lined the walls, filled with leather-bound volumes and photos. Jin-woo with dignitaries, Jin-woo with a younger Min-jun, Jin-woo with his late wife. A room steeped in history and tradition, now the stage for a very modern, very ugly conflict. Min-jun stood near the fireplace, impeccably dressed as always, but his usual smirk was replaced by a mask of righteous anger. Jin-woo sat behind his massive desk, looking older and more frail than So-Yeon had ever seen him. The tech blog article lay open on the polished wood surface between them. "So-Yeon," Jin-woo began, his voice strained, "Min-jun has shown me concerning information. This leak." "Father, it's worse than a leak," Min-jun interrupted, his voice ringing with feigned despair. "It confirms what I've feared. Director Kang's ambition has blinded her. She pushed the Helios timeline too aggressively, cut corners, pressured R&D to overlook potential flaws. These documents," he gestured towards the desk, "they show a pattern of misrepresentation. She has endangered the company, our family's legacy, everything you built." He turned to So-Yeon, his eyes blazing. "How could you?" So-Yeon met his gaze, her own anger a cold, steady flame. She refused to be intimidated. "That article is a fabrication, built on stolen, manipulated data. The Helios technology is sound. The anonymous sources are likely non-existent or coerced." "Coerced?" Min-jun scoffed. "Or perhaps finally brave enough to speak out against your mismanagement." He appealed to his father again. "Father, you must see. She has to be removed. Immediately. I need full control to contain this damage, to reassure our investors, to save PJ Tech before it's too late. Think of Mother. Think of what she would want." The invocation of his deceased wife made Jin-woo flinch. Emotional blackmail expertly wielded. So-Yeon stepped forward, placing the USB stick Ji-hai had given her, along with a printed summary of her findings on the desk beside the offending article. "Chairman, Min-jun, this isn't about mismanagement, it's about sabotage. A campaign waged by Min-jun since the day my role was expanded." Her voice was low but clear, cutting through Min-jun's performance. She detailed the Nightingale deal, the rerouted server resources, the pattern of obstruction, the timing of the rumors. "And this leak," she continued, tapping the summary, "contains metadata fragments traceable directly back to Min-jun's executive network access logs. He didn't just find these documents, he orchestrated their release and distortion." Min-jun paled slightly but recovered quickly. "Absurd! Desperate accusations from someone caught in the act. Father, she's trying to deflect." "Is she Min-jun?" Jin-woo's voice was quiet but held a new edge. He picked up So-Yeon's summary, his eyes scanning the data points, the timelines. The pieces were clicking into place. The subtle warnings from So-Yeon he'd dismissed, Min-jun's sudden attentiveness, the convenient timing of this crisis. The denial he'd clung to was crumbling under the weight of evidence. He looked from his son's furious face to So-Yeon's controlled calm. He saw Min-jun's naked ambition, his ruthlessness, the poison of entitlement he himself had perhaps fostered. He saw So-Yeon's competence, her resilience, the unfairness of the attacks she'd endured. He was trapped between the legacy he'd built and the son he loved, between tradition and merit, between preserving a fractured peace and embracing a painful truth. The silence stretched, thick with the impending weight of his decision. The future of PJ Tech and the fragile structure of their family hung precariously in the balance. The chairman's decision, when it came days later after the immediate media firestorm was cautiously managed, felt less like a resolution and more like a carefully constructed ceasefire. Publicly, PJ Tech issued a statement strongly refuting the blog's claims about Helios, presenting preliminary validation data and promising a full internal review. The Singapore summit presentation went ahead, albeit under a cloud, with So-yeon delivering it flawlessly, projecting confidence she didn't entirely feel. Privately, the outcome was muddier. Jinwoo didn't fire So-yeon. He didn't publicly censure Min-jun either. Instead, he announced another restructuring. So-yeon retained a senior title, VP of Global Strategy, but the hub concept was diluted. Key responsibilities for future tech roadmapping were shifted back under a steering committee co-chaired by both So-yeon and Min-jun. It was a recipe for deadlock, a hollow victory for So-yeon, a strategic retreat for Min-jun rather than a defeat. He had faced a private, undoubtedly furious, reprimand from his father, but he remained firmly entrenched, his power base bruised but intact. So-yeon understood. Jinwoo couldn't bring himself to dismantle the image of family unity, couldn't fully cast out his son, the heir apparent groomed since birth. He had chosen the path of least immediate destruction, a weak compromise that preserved the facade but solved nothing fundamental. The trust between So-yeon and Jinwoo, though not broken, was irrevocably altered. He had seen the truth but blinked. Her hope for a true partnership, for earned acceptance based purely on merit within this powerful family, withered. She was still, in essence, the outsider, her position contingent not just on her performance, but on the delicate, shifting balance of familial obligation and pride. Weeks melted into a month. The atmosphere at PJ Tech was thick with unspoken tension. Meetings involving both So-yeon and Min-jun were models of icy professionalism. Collaboration was minimal. Progress on joint initiatives stalled. Lee Jae gave So-yeon a knowing, sympathetic look across a boardroom table one afternoon, a silent acknowledgement of the compromised reality. One rain-slicked evening, So-yeon sat in her quiet apartment within the Pyeongchang-dong compound, the lights of Seoul blurring